Hey, hey. Hello, hello. We are getting started today on day 3. How many of you are excited to be here for day 3? Here we go. Let me just make sure that I've got my news feed pulled up so that I can see what is going on. Let me grab it here. Where'd you go? Where'd you go? There you are. Okay. So this one's going to be a little different. I know we might have a little bit of different attendance today because of it being at a different time. So I am just going to welcome you. Welcome to day 3. And whether you are watching the recording or you are on live with me, I'm so happy to have you here. So today, let's do a really short review. Day 1, we talked about why you don't have the relationship you want and that you're in the relationship management business. And we gave you a tool to sort of evaluate how things are going, right? Make sure that you're actually like, hey, how am I doing in this area? Hey, Joan, welcome. So that was day 1, is like just our checkup. Day 2, we talked about the top 2 marketing secrets, right? For our family success. And we talked about how it's really important that we build that know, like, and trust factor. And that is stuff that we can do. Like, it's all us, baby. It doesn't require anybody else to do anything in order to get that know, like, and trust factor, like learning that and learning about other people. So that was day 2. We talked about that. We also talked about the specific framework that businesses use to communicate what the value of what they have, the value of what they want you to buy. And as a result, we can take that into our families and use that same framework as a compelling way to communicate to our kids and to our spouses what we're really longing for, what we're hoping that they're going to understand and come to believe, and things like that. Today, we are actually going to talk about why you can't just jump in and into those conversations. Like, what gets, sorry, this is a little bit tilted. What gets in the way? If you go in and you just start trying to take that framework and you just, like, out of the blue, out of nowhere, start trying to use that, is it going to work? Maybe, maybe not. There's another part. There's this invisible ladder of relationship success that we're all climbing it, well, let me preface, some of us are not climbing it. And then we wonder why it's not working. That's the truth. But usually we're somewhere on that ladder while we're trying to communicate with other people. And so I want to show you that ladder today and help you see the value of the different steps and actually a systematic way of how you're building that relationship for success. Okay, so that's what we're doing today. First, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my coaching program. I was trying to come up with a good story for this, and the easiest way is just to tell you one of my first stories. When I first started getting into coaching as a business, I know I told you, like, I didn't know I was in business when I got in business, but really early on, when I did know, I was like, when I was actually like, oh, I am running a business. And I needed a client. I was like, oh, I got to have some clients. So I experienced what's called picking the low-hanging fruit. A lot of people term it that because it's the easiest stuff to get off the tree. You didn't have to climb the ladder to get that business. It was on the ground, right? So the low-hanging fruit. So when I was first in business, the first client that I ever signed up before I told them how much it cost, any details about the program, In fact, I wasn't even trying to sell them a coaching program. I was just like, as a friend, I was telling them, hey, I think I'm actually coaching people. And I'm really excited because I think that this is going to create possibility for people. And they were like, I'm in. Like, wait, I haven't told you how much it cost. They're like, okay, how much does it cost? I told them, they're like, I'm in. And for the record, they didn't have the money and they still opted in, and they figured out how to, like, they figured it out. They were so invested. So I was like, whoa, that was easy. And then I had some conversations. I was like, okay, I can do this. If this is the way it works, I can do it. And I had other people come and they're like, yeah, no, I'm not buying that. Right. And I was like, oh no, I'm terrible at selling. I don't know what's wrong with me. And I would get off a call and I would think, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? Well, now it's actually very unusual for me to have a call with someone that I'm back to kind of like that initial thing where the calls that I have with people, there's no question about whether they want what I offer. They're like, no, I'm clear. There might be a question of, I'm not exactly sure how to pay for this, or I'm not sure how that's going to fit into my time schedule, but I want what you got. There's no question there. Well, why is that? Well, it has to do with value. So value, first of all, what is value? Value is helping people do things better and faster. If we can offer some way of giving people something that they want, or helping them get it better or faster, then we're creating value. It's education, like helping them learn something they want to know, or making people feel good about themselves or their interactions. But I like this one. Value is empowering people to make good decisions and take the right actions so that they get the best results. That's my favorite definition of value. So contributing value today is really critical in business success, because no longer is it just like there's only one hardware shop on the corner of the one road town. I mean, there are still those towns, don't get me wrong, but even those towns, like, we got Amazon, we got delivery services, all kinds of online stuff. So you can't just make it in business because you happen to be the only one. That doesn't exist anymore. You can get anything you want to online, just about. And as a result, the way that people keep their customers is by delivering value in a way that the customer stays. They want to stay with you because you've built a relationship. And so what we're looking at today is how to build that value in our family. We're doing the same thing. You know, it looks like when they're young, your kids don't have a choice. Like they're stuck where they're at. But you know, with families, with friends, like it's like, oh, family, like blood is thicker than water or whatever. But you know, you've seen families, maybe you even have some people in your family that are like, no, I'm opting out of this mess, right? They don't have to stick around. There's no forced, like, this is not their only option. We have enough connections with people that no longer do we have to depend on just our immediate family for support. Our culture has done away with that being an absolute necessity, and people get support from all over the place. Lots of people have friends that are much closer than their family, so they don't have to stay. So, but we want to cultivate that love and that relationship, don't we? We want it. And so how do we do that? So remember when I said the other day that I ran away when I was 7, right? So when I was 13, my parents decided to change everything in my life. Everything in our lives. At the time, I was the oldest of 6. My mom was pregnant with number 7. And we changed everything: where we lived, the clothes we wore, the music we listened to. We went from public school to homeschool. And when I say where we lived, like my dad lost his job in Georgia and got subcontracted to work in Puerto Rico. So we like really changed where we lived. Everything changed. How we did it felt like everything. I don't know how to emphasize everything other than just the word everything. I give up. Anyway, all of it. It was a lot. It was a lot at 13 years old. I was going through my own, like everything was changing for me anyway. And I didn't feel heard. I didn't feel heard. I did feel connected to some of my friends and some of the people at church and some of the people that I knew at school. I loved band at school. And so what it felt like was the connections that I did feel were solid, they're gone. And the family connection that was rocky already, note that I ran away from home when I was 7 or 8, it just exacerbated itself because we went from, I got away from them at public school, which was not all great, don't get me wrong, but now I'm in a pressure cooker of spend time with your family, right? So that wasn't all bad either. That's a part of my, I can go into that later, but the idea was this huge transition, this huge need for me to come along and accept what was going on in my family. It was a critical point that they were wanting me to choose something different in life. And we were not high enough up on the value ladder for that giant thing to transfer in that stage. And it was a disaster. It was a disaster. I completely revolted, and we had numerous years of misery in our family, and it was a mess. So the question is, could anything have helped? Could anything have helped in that situation? Well, let me contrast that with a different story. Later, when I was 18 years old and even more of a wreck because things had gone south and I ran away from home and I was living with a boyfriend in Tennessee, and there was a pivotal moment where suddenly, this is also there's a whole nother story around this, but the short is, during that time, a very quick decision was made, and my parents were involved too, where I was living in Tennessee, working a part-time job, living with a boyfriend, and in 2 weeks, I moved back home, all my stuff, they moved the boyfriend back to his home, set me up for college, and I went to college in Georgia in the span of 2 weeks, like get me ready for college, outfit a dorm room, buy new clothes and new organizing stuff. And I had no bedding, like for sure. Done. Right. So everything changed again, this everything changed moment, but the response was completely different. How we interacted was completely different. Now, I will say one situation I definitely felt like I had some say in what was going on, and the other one I really felt like I didn't have some say in what was going on, and I think that made a difference there. But did anything else make a difference? I think so. I think that in that moment, in the second one, my mother had started learning about climbing this invisible ladder of relationship success and had started doing it, and she just didn't know it. She was contributing value in little ways so that when there was something big that needed to transpire, there was a big ask or a big offer, that there was some stability underneath it to make that shift. Does that make sense? So let's talk, I'm going to talk about the ladder, but I want to talk about the customer journey first. Well, I'm going to talk about both of them. All right. First of all, what is the ladder? It's a value ladder, and it identifies kind of what kind of storm you can weather in a relationship. So the higher you are on the ladder, the more likely you are to be able to conquer any difficult situation or go through a conflict or communicate to the person something that you feel like is important, and them actually take that feedback and do something with it that brings a resolution where both of you feel satisfied at the end. Or even just staying connected during a difficult thing, maintaining that loving relationship in spite of some sort of significant adversity. When it's incorrectly climbed in business, it looks like small businesses shutting down. I looked up a couple of statistics. It says 42% of new businesses fail because there's no market need for what they're offering. Half of the reasons that are given for business failure have something to do with being disconnected relationally from either the customer or their employees. So what that's saying is somebody created something that they thought was great. Nobody creates something that, like, when we create things and we try to sell them, we generally think they have value, right? But the problem is, are we adequately communicating that value to other people? Are we doing it in a way that other people hear that that's valuable and believe that that's valuable and do something with it? And one of the main problems in businesses is they don't adequately communicate that value. They don't find out what the customer is actually needing. They just create a product and, like, why aren't you buying it? Here's the thing. You should get it, right? And that's what we do in our families too. We can often feel like, well, I'm a mom. I've been around. You ought to do this. Isn't this obvious? We talked a little bit about this yesterday, right? But over a broader scheme of things, we just get in the habit of thinking, because I am your parent, your God-given authority, or because I'm your spouse, your husband, your wife, therefore I deserve the assumption that what I'm saying is valuable and you should value it too. And the way that companies go under is they assume that that's happening, and it's not. So whether you like it or not, you've got to communicate the value in ways on a regular basis. So companies know that in order to get someone to really be invested in their product or something like that, that they need somewhere between 7 and 13 touch points before a potential customer is ready to buy. Anything less than 5 touch points, and that's considered that low-hanging fruit. Like, you got lucky, you've already invested in that relationship in some way, or there was a convenience of some point why you ended up being the place that they got what they needed, right? Think of like the gas station. Like, the person bought the milk at the gas station because that was on the way home and that's just where they were going to get milk, right? So there was convenience there. That first client that I got that was like, I'm in, that wasn't just based on that one touch point. It looked like it from a business perspective. It looked like, oh, that's the first time I've talked to her. Got it. But in actuality, I had invested 6 years of time and energy and love into a relationship with that person. And so there was already investment there. There was already value that had been communicated before I ever started a business. Make sense? So on average, companies know that if they get 9 touch points with somebody else, like, so in business, that looks like an email, a Facebook post, a video that they watch, a flyer that they get, a phone call or a text message, or somebody else says, hey, I use this program or something like that. 9 touch points that they have, and the person is still listening to their stuff, that they have a 90% chance of that person purchasing something from their business. 90%. For 9 touch points. So what that tells us is in a relationship, in the relationship management business, it's just about the numbers a lot of times. It's like motive and consistency is so huge. Think about all the touch points that God creates for us when he sets out what he wants his people to do in Deuteronomy. So I'm going to read Deuteronomy 6, 4-9. It says, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your might. And these words that I command you today shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children. There's one touch point. You shall talk to them when you sit in your house. You shall walk by the way, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise. You shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. You shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. How many are there? 9. 9. Isn't that cool? Did you catch them? Go back to your Bible and like underline them, like show, like it's not a mistake. It's not a coincidence that this is what God's saying. You gotta make it like over and over and over again in front of them. Teach it to them. Talk about it when you're sitting down. Talk about it when you're walking. Talk about when you're lying down and when you rise up. Bind them as a sign on your hand. Make them frontlets between your eyes. Write them on a doorpost and on your gates. All the places. So what's the purpose of this inundation of information, of these reminders? It's to take our customers or our family on a journey. It's to take them on a journey. So I'm going to show you what the journey is first, and then I'll show you how to climb the ladder. Let's do this. You know what? I'm hot. I'm taking my jacket off. I was out taking my kids to their job this afternoon, and that was a little chilly. Now I'm all worked up and I got hot. All right. So I want you to understand that the customer is on a journey and you're climbing a ladder. These work tandem together, okay? It's just from the perspective of what's going on. You consciously climb the ladder, but you don't talk about what you're like. You don't try to point out to your people like, hey, this is my thus and such a step. That's not helpful. Okay. But the purpose of climbing the ladder is to take them on this journey. Okay. So what's the journey? First is awareness. So in a business, awareness looks like just creating curiosity. We want people to know we exist. I want people to know I actually have a product and what it does. That's awareness, okay? In a family, it looks like modeling what you want yourself, modeling it yourself, the behavior that you want. So as a parent, I might do things like, if I want my kids to learn the value of devotions, I would I'm going to be okay with having devotions in the room where they're at sometimes, because I just want them to see that I'm reading my Bible every day. Or if I value them making up their bed, I'm going to make my own up. If I value a clean room, mine's going to be clean. If I value doing your schoolwork and not waiting till the last minute, I'm going to model doing my work and not waiting till the last minute. Make sense? So we're modeling that behavior. Other behavior, things like encouraging people while others are listening. If we want other people to see that encouraging is a positive thing that we want in our family, then they've got to see us doing it in front of them. By the way, conversely, you can do a lot of good for your kids to have conflict in front of them, healthy conflict. Why? Because no relationship exists without any conflict. But you want them to know how to do it well, right? You want them to learn how to do it well, that it's worth going through, and that there is a path to do it well. And so having an argument with my husband in front of my kids is actually a really healthy thing to do, as long as I'm not being a jerk. I don't want them to learn that it's okay for me to treat him like crap and him still give me what I want. I don't want them to learn that lesson. So I'm going to model proper behavior. So we're creating awareness, like, hey, something is possible here. Something is available. The second one is consideration. So once they're aware, the next thing is they consider. There's that thing over there, foot massager. I wonder if that's something I want. I wonder if it's a good product. I wonder if it's going to hold up. I wonder if it's going to, does it meet any needs that I have? Those kinds of things, consideration. So we might, what happens here is the person becomes aware that the company has something that they might could use or need. Okay. And so in our families, that looks like we become aware of their desires and what they need. We learn enough about them, maybe where they're feeling inadequate or what they could use for support, whether it's a kid or a spouse or a coworker or an elderly parent. And this requires time and focus, but we want them to move on their journey of considering things, right? Now we're considering them, but we also want them to move in the journey of considering is what we're doing and the way that we're living something that they want. Okay. I was thinking about how do we create this in our families, and the example that came up for me was I was having a cough. What was I trying to say? I almost said I don't even know. I went to coffee with a friend. I think I almost said I went to friend with a coffee. That's what it was. I went to coffee with a friend the other day, and we were talking about the importance of do nothing days in our family and how much we really appreciated them. So the idea being, a lot of times we'll have an intentional day where nothing is planned. It's just like, yeah, sure, if you want to watch a movie, yeah, sure, if we want to take a walk, we'll do that. Or sometimes it just looks like I'm sitting on the couch reading a book that I'm willing to interrupt if anytime somebody comes in the room. And the value of that is that I'm available for them to come and ask questions and have conversations and talk about things before it reaches a boiling point. It just creates a natural space. There's space for people to think and process, and safety to bring up something, because if it ends up in a longer conversation, it's no big deal. So do nothing days is a way that we sort of create a space for consideration. Just as an example for how that works. All right. So number 3, so awareness, we're taking them on this journey. They're aware. Oh, now they're considering our ideas. Okay. D is for decision. Decision. They're going to make a decision. Yeah, I like what you're selling me, or no, I don't. So this means the customers decide in the business, the customers decided, I think I'm going to try it. But usually for a first time around decision, they're still a little bit nervous about paying for it. They're a little bit like, am I going to get my money's worth? I don't know. I hope I do. I hope this works out. I'm going to try it. Right? That's where they're at here. In a family, I can't tell you how many times this happens. Somebody's like, okay, I'm going to try this new thing. Right? And they're a little bit nervous about it. And sometimes they don't even tell somebody what they're trying out new. They've made a decision to try a new way, and they sort of tiptoe into it. And what happens? They do it a little bit messy or a little bit wrong, and they get slammed for it. They're like, nope. And they run. They're like, I'm not trying that again. Think about, I've had to backpedal on some of these myself. I'm thinking about things like sending Brandon to the store, the infamous sending him to this, like, will you pick up something for me from the store? And he comes home with the wrong thing, right? And my response is, why'd you get that brand? Or we never buy that brand. I don't understand why. You know, that's not the thing I did. Why would you? And he's like, that is the last time I get something from the store for you. Right. Or one that I heard one time was one spouse decided to wash the dishes. And so they, just to be nice, like, I think I'm going to just wash the dishes to be nice. The other partner comes in, and the person washing, partner A says, that was washing the dishes, says, hey, I washed the dishes for you. Partner B says, you didn't wash the dishes for me. You washed the dishes for us. Like, you live here. Washing the dishes is part of just, like, you live in this house. That's not for me. How much inspiration do you think they had to do something again? This much. Or maybe none. Like, we shut it down. They didn't do it exactly right, or they did it in a way that we didn't expect, or like we focus on the mistake. If you think about this in a business, the customer buys the product, the store wants them to have a successful experience with it. And so the customer goes home and they like try it out, and they bring it back to the store and they say, this didn't work quite right. Does the store say, like, do the people in the store say, well, you idiot, of course it didn't work right. You did it wrong. Maybe if you would try it the correct way, it would do what you wanted it to. The customer would say, here, have your thing back. Not only will I never be back, but I will also never recommend you to any of my friends. Right? No, the customer, the store wants their business. And so they're like, oh, you had trouble with that? Oh, wow, I'm so excited that you tried it. And was anything else good about it? Like, or how can I help you troubleshoot what isn't working? But there's a lot of positivity. There's a lot of encouragement. There's a lot of focus on the fact that you bought the thing that we sold you. And so we actually are taking responsibility for some of the problem that you had around it. That's not all your fault, customer. Maybe we didn't explain ourselves well, or maybe there's a way that we can help you with that. Do you see the huge difference that in our family, we just take it for granted that we can just treat them like they're going to be around and come back and buy from us again. That's not true. So this decision, our job is to be encouraging anyway, be a cheerleader for the efforts that they're making. This happens all the time with spouses. I've done a lot of marriage mentoring and coaching with people. It happens all the time with, like, the wife wants the husband to do something different. And he finally screws up the courage to, like, go out, and he buys her a bouquet of flowers, and he comes home and she's like, don't buy me something that's going to die in 2 days. And he's like, done. Never mind. Like, tell my kids all the time, no, the correct response is thank you. The correct response is thank you. That's what the correct response is. So we want to support them as they make a decision that they're nervous about. Okay. Next is delivery and use. This one gets us in trouble all the time too. Delivery and use. Okay, so delivery and use. Businesses deliver services consistently, right? That's what they're supposed to do. We're supposed to, you order the product, we're going to send it to you. And use, we want to make sure that you're being successful with it, right? So they want to make sure that they got it to you on time, that it came correctly, that all the packaging was still intact, nothing was broken. In fact, some companies really pride themselves on what's called over delivering. Like, I want to make sure that you have an extra special experience with us. So what that looks like is, I'm going to send it in an extra nice box. Or if you bought something really nice, it might have a bow wrapped around it, it's packed neatly in the box. maybe they add a coupon for something else with it, or they say, you know what, since you bought this thing, here's an extra sample of something else that we also sell, right, at no charge. I bought some lipstick not too long ago and spent quite a lot of money on lipstick. And then in the package that I got, the person sent me a couple of extra makeup items that just as a thank you for purchasing from them. And it made me feel good. I was like, oh, wow, I'm special. They like me, right? And so they over deliver. We want them to have a good experience in business. So in family, what that looks like is, are we supporting people consistently? Can they count on us? Do we deliver what we say we're going to deliver when we say we're going to deliver it? Or do the orders get lost? Like, yeah, I'll take care of that for you. And then we don't. Do we follow up on our commitments and our promises? Like, yes, I will get that from the store, or I will make that phone call. Or I think about right now, I got a bunch of teenage boys and they're all the time needing shoes. I'm like, yes, I will take you to the store and get shoes. And then the lag time before I actually take them out and get them. One of my sons was like, okay, Mom, my toe is actually outside of the front of my shoe now. Can we please go to the store and get shoes? Like, yes, we can. So we want to make sure that we are following through and not procrastinating. I will never forget I recently heard someone say, the definition of procrastination is asking God to give you time to do something that he already gave you time to do. How do I feel about asking God for time to do something that he already gave me time to do? I don't like that. But that's what we're doing when we procrastinate. When we aren't punctual, it's in respecting other people. That's part of delivery too. Like, I'm going to show up on time. If I tell my kids, yes, I will pick you up at thus and such a time, or if I tell my husband I'll be home at thus and such a time, and I'm not punctual, what that's actually communicating to them is that my needs and agenda are more important than your needs and agenda. It's actually a level of disrespect to them. As we're thinking about, like, how are we doing on our delivery? When the Amazon delivery guy says that package is going to be on your doorstep on Thursday, and it isn't there on Thursday, I'm like, what happened to my stuff? What happened to my stuff? Did somebody steal it? Did I have porch pirates? I'm over there wondering. But in a family, we just take it for granted. Oh, I didn't do what I said I'd do. It's important. We're taking them on this journey. If we want them to buy into things that we say, we want them, like, we want to be consistent. It's important. Like, I got really, like, I started squirming a little bit when I make commitments to my kids. I'm like, I'm not promising to take you to the store. I'm promising to write down on a list that you need to go to this store, because I can keep that promise. Because I was trying to be careful with my words. I wanted them to know that everything that comes out of my mouth, that they can count on it. I want them to believe me about so many things much more valuable than whether or not I'm going to take them to the store and get shoes. That if it comes out of my mouth and I say it, that they can trust it, that it's consistent, that they can count on it. Like, my mom keeps her word. I want Brandon to be able to count on me, that when I say I'm going to be home at 8:00, that I actually mean I'm going to be home at 8:00, and that he can count on that. That it's not one of these, it's been a joke before with us that if I say I'll be home at 8:00, he says, see you tomorrow. If you're not going to be home at 8:00, I don't expect you to come home until I'm in bed. So I started saying, hey, I'm not going to be home, and like, I might not be home until after you're already in bed. I just started way overestimating it. I think I'm going to be at home this time. I'm going to add 3 hours. I started saying it because I didn't know how to keep my word. Okay, this is the time I'm going to tell him. And if it's still okay for me to go with that expectation, now we're on the same page. And if I'm early, surprising him is no big deal, right? Like, hey, I'm home early, yay. He's like, fine, okay. So delivery and use. This is a big one, isn't it? Big, huge. Okay, next one, last one. Loyalty and advocacy. I spell it advocacy. Yes. Okay. This means like you're having repeated success. They come back to your shop and learn about something else, consider something else. They make a new decision. They get that delivered. They like that so much, they're going to try something else. It reminds me of like, I don't know, like one of these places like MLM where you try, they hook you on their vitamins, right? And you try them, you're like, oh, I like that. And then they're going to hook you on their oil. And then you try that and you're like, oh, and they have kids stuff. And then you try that and like, oh, and also da, 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 da. And they just go right back around. So the loyalty piece in a family looks like they've had enough positive experiences with you that you are going, like, they will bring bigger things to you. So what does that look like practically? It looks like you listen to their Minecraft drivel while they were talking incessantly about some stupid world that they built that you don't want to listen to, and it makes your eyes cross, but you sat there and listened to it because it was something that was interesting and valuable to them and it was important to them. And so what that means is that they come and talk to you about the girl that they like, and that they feel safe talking to you incessantly about that also. And I was telling one of my clients the other day, like, by the way, the feeling as a parent is the same. Oh my goodness, I have to listen to Minecraft. Oh my goodness, I have to listen about the girl. They're like, oh, it's the same feeling. Yes, it's the same feeling. I mean, sometimes it's interesting, but sometimes people have a crush and they're like, everything that comes out of their mouth is about this, like this one person and this and everything about, like it's like listening to Minecraft dribble. That's just, I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, but I want them to tell me about the girl. Heavens, I want them to talk to me about the girl. So we created advocacy and loyalty way back when they just were talking about the Minecraft stuff. Like, it's safe. Makes sense. We do that with our husbands. We do that with our wives. We do that with our extended family. They can tell when you are willing to listen to something that, quote, doesn't matter so much. That's building that loyalty so that when there is something that matters, they'll feel safe to talk to you about that too. Right? Okay, so this is the journey that we're taking them on. And in order to take them on this journey, how do we create this awareness and get them to consider things and make good decisions and delivery and use? We climb the value ladder. That's how we do it. So the important point is that climbing the ladder takes time and you need to start now. Okay, it's not too late. We'll talk about that later, but you do need to start now because climbing the ladder takes time. So let's talk about the steps on the ladder. As I'm moving this, I want to tell you a little bit about, so the classic way to not climb the ladder is all these little like MLM startup people, your Aunt Margaret learned about a brand new lotion that sucks the fat right out of your arms, and she's bought into the company. And so what does she do? She's private messaging every person that she's ever met in her entire life and is like, would you like to buy some of my amazing lotion? It's awesome and it only costs this much. And people are like, no, but I do want to block you from my newsfeed and never, and like, please never contact me again, right? That doesn't work. People try it in business and people try it in families. We're like, I'm going to wait and just only talk about the big things because everything else isn't getting along. And so I'm only going to discuss things when it's like absolutely critical. And it really sets up for a terrible disaster. So we want to climb this ladder. This is what companies do to build customer relationships, and we can hack it from them. We can leverage this into our families. So what's the first step? We're going to start down here. The free offer. The free offer. The free offer is like, I'm doing something, you can have it, no big deal, something just kind of like try it out kind of thing. It would look like, so in a coaching business or an online business, it looks like, hey, I've got this cool checklist you can have. It's a very minimal investment, like put your email in and you get this free offer. This challenge is a free offer, right? So you put your email in, it didn't really cost you very much except for giving me your email address, and then you get all this content for free. That would be a free thing, okay? And what we're doing is we're trying to get them to experience what is available in our company. That's what companies are trying to do. In a family, it looks like you modeling that behavior, like the crazy behavior. You got to be crazy, do it yourself first. Okay, that's the part where God's like, you shall teach them diligently. You shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise, and you shall bind them on a sign on your hand, and they will be frontlets on your eyes, and you will write them on your doorposts of your house and on your gates. Notice that it's like, no, you do these things. Not make other people do these things. You do it. You do it. You model. And put it everywhere. We want to model the behavior. It costs them nothing to observe it. Okay, it's free. You know who's really good at this? All the COVID people. There's signs everywhere, right? You know it's true. There's signs about masks. There's signs about vaccinations. There's signs about, and probably get dinged for saying these words on my live feed. There's signs about the importance of caring about the stuff. There's signs about the importance of caring about others. Like if you care about others, then you'll do A, B, and C. If you, make sure that you social distance, make sure that you get your shot, make sure it's everywhere, isn't it? If you're in Georgia, when they first came out with mask mandates, they had them on the street signs, like you're driving down the road and the signs that normally say buckle your seatbelt say things like buckle your seatbelt and wash your hands, like or whatever. They had them everywhere. It's just inundated. Why? Because they want to get their message out. They're like, it's not costing anybody else anything, and nobody pays for that. Like, we as the society don't directly pay money for them to put those ads up. Now, they're getting money other ways that more than covers the cost of that advertising, right? But directly, we aren't having to pay 10 cents for that advertisement or $1 for the sign that the restaurant puts in the window. We just see it all the time, right? So the companies are paying for that advertising, but we're getting the message all the time. Make sense? So the same way in our families, we hold the cost, we bear the cost of communicating the message. And the easiest way to do that is to model the behavior that we want. That's the easiest way to get the message out to our kids, to our spouse, of what we're trying to create, without it costing them anything. It just costs us. But that's this level. So are you doing it? Yeah. All right. So by the way, I'm not getting, I don't have an opinion. I do have opinions, but my opinion about whether or not the COVID signs is not like, it just exists and there's messaging. I'm not saying I agree with it or anyway, stories for another day. They're good at their marketing strategies. That's what I'm going to say. They're good at their marketing strategies. Okay. Whew. Step 2. This is your intro offer. Okay. Now, a lot of people give a free offer that leads into an intro offer. That would look like, so this is, a lot of times people call this like you're building a funnel, but it's really creating value for people. So they try something free, then they try something that costs a little bit, then they try something else that costs a little bit more. It can be an investment of money. It can be an investment of time. It can be an investment in other resources. It doesn't necessarily have to mean like you pay a little bit of money. It can be different ways that people invest in an intro offer. But basically it's like, hey, try out a little bit of the crazy that we did in our, like, that you see us doing. It's a little bit like, it's the difference between me dancing around in the living room and saying, hey, would you like to dance too? And seeing if I can, if my kids want to also dance around, right? That would be kind of like they're investing themselves in that idea. So in our family, what that means is we know that they have a need and that we want to better explain and get them invested in something that we have kind of low level, like, let me show you what's going on here. It's a little bit like, hey, there's more to this. It invites a little bit of curiosity, things like that. When I think of this, I think like somebody might hand you a cookie at the bakery and be like, oh, you're trying to decide whether or not you want to buy a whole dozen of these cookies? Here, try one. Or like they might give you a slice of meat to see if that's the deli meat that you want at the counter, right? That would be like your little intro offer. Okay. The free offer would be, it is free, but you are having to invest your stomach and committing to your taste buds to this particular thing. So it can kind of move into an intro offer. The free offer is like, look at all the meat and I can give you a pamphlet of everything that's available here. Just, you can take it home for free, no big deal. Intro offer would be, here, have a slice of meat and see what you think about this. Okay. It invites curiosity. My dad was really great about this when he was trying to teach us how to do different things in our house when I was growing up. He wouldn't, we would have a plumbing problem or my car would have a problem or something like that. And he would whip out a napkin. I don't know how the man always had a napkin on him. He still does. He still does this. He would have a napkin and a pen in his pocket. And if we had a problem, he wouldn't just solve it. He would come in and he'd be like, okay, so first, before we solve the problem, let me draw a little picture of what's going on here. And he'd get us all interested in how it worked and why it worked that way and what the problem was and the breakdown and like what we needed to do and all of this. Like he got us invested into the little bit more nuances of what was going on. Okay. So that looks like the napkin drawing. It could look like, hey, as a family, we're saving money for a new living room set. And so we have a picture that we're putting on the refrigerator to remind everybody in the house that we're praying for the money we're saving for the new living room suit. And so here's the reminder that this is what we're after. It's like inviting that curiosity. Oh, I want, like, that's interesting that mom and dad are praying for that. And this is how they're doing it. Interesting. It invites that curiosity. In my relationship renovations program, which is coming up in January, I go way more in depth about, I'll be going way more in depth about how we can provide lots and lots of free and introductory value to our families. But that's just kind of generally what it looks like. Okay. So yeah, we're doing okay. We're almost done. The third step is the lead offer. The lead offer, doing it together. Lead offer. This is like, okay, all right, we got a little traction here. Like, you're kind of committed to, like, you think we got something here that you might want. And so we can offer you something a little more value, a little higher up in a company that might look like a little bit higher ticket item, or it might look like investing a little bit more time and energy into whatever it is. Like, this product's going to take more of your time, or this product's going to take more of your attention in order to make it work. Like, because at this point, people are willing to put a little bit more effort into whatever they know you've got something that's valuable. Okay. So in our family, what that looks like is teamwork. It looks like, hey, let's clean this up together. Let's not just I'm dancing, you're dancing, but hey, let's dance together, right? It's a unity thing. We serve together, or come do it with me. Now you're not just watching me pray or seeing how this works in prayer, but we're actually believing for answers together. Or we're going to do this thing and sit together while we do it. Those kinds of things. It's a bringing them in. And a lot of times with this, there's an invitation, but it's like they want to do it at the same time. There's a mutual agreement to that. So this is really team spirit. Like, hey, we're in this together. My success is your success. I don't win unless we both win. That kind of attitude in this arena. Okay. And then the fourth is the bullseye. This is the big one. Like, oh man, we hit the jackpot. We sold them the most expensive car on the lot. That's the kind of idea. Not because we just talked them into it or we manipulate them, because they want it. They see the value of it. And it's not that we talked them into it. No, they decided this is what I want. Okay. Do you see the difference? There's a very big difference there. We didn't force anybody to buy it, right? We say, hey, this is available for you. Do you want this? And they're like, yes, I do. Okay. So that's what that looks like. In relationships, it's what I call the big asks. It's like, buddy, we got to have a conversation about the relationship that you got with this girlfriend. Or it's, honey, I need to sit down and talk to you about our finances. I don't know how we're going to pay for this, but we might have to cancel our vacation in order to pay our bills. Those kinds of conversations, going into something big like that. And they're like so invested that they're like, yes, I want this communication and this connection with you, that I'm willing to do that. It looks like going through something difficult and having a relationship when you come out, going through some sort of life-changing experience, some horrific thing, somebody passes away, but your relationship still maintains or even thrives in spite of that. It looks like I think back to when we moved from the full-time ministry at the Bible school where we lived down to Georgia. 3 weeks before we moved, my husband got sepsis and almost died in the hospital. And in that moment, there had to be a lot of trust going on, right? Because I needed to be trusting the Lord that I needed to have a heavy trust that God had our backs and that he was not screwing around with me. Because I actually did have people point this out. Oh, you are set up perfectly to be a widow because you're already planning to move in with your parents, and he's like wrapped up his job and like, and if I let myself go there, I could really get focused on that. I had to have a relationship with God that like we had some substance. That I was like, no, you got my back. You're not screwing around with me. I can trust you to get us through this, and not only do it, like get through it, but also thrive. Like, hey, not only can we do this, but I can spend 4 nights on the hospital floor in my husband's hospital room and smile about it and still be a witness to the nurses and things like that. That's because there's this high level of value that we like. I want this in my relationship with the Lord. And we get something amazing out of it. We get stability and we get connection. And that happened with my husband too, because all of a sudden he couldn't move a thing. He couldn't help with the move. He couldn't drive the truck. He couldn't, like, I'm just glad he was alive and actually was able to come with us. So, but that creates a lot of tension in a situation where there was already a lot of tension. And if we haven't invested value way back here, climbing this ladder, then we get to something like, and it blows it apart. But if we get to here and we've really put in this work, you know what this does? It brings us together. It brings us together, and it causes us to lean in more closely and depend on each other and count on each other. And as a result, our family grew closer and stronger together. And that's what's available here. So what that creates is step 5. Oh, but there's something else I want to tell you about this step 4 before we get to step 5. I didn't put step 5 here because it's kind of like a bonus step, but I want to tell you something else about this. There's something that gets in the way of us staying on this step. And the thing is that companies who get here, they don't have they're not selling the competition in their store. They're not over there saying, hey, there's a cheaper version over here you could buy. It has already been completely eliminated from the decision-making process. There's no question about like, are we gonna, like, do we want to get the cheaper version? And wise companies are not over here like have it on a shelf available for them to look at while they're trying to make a decision about, are they actually going to buy this that has a lot of value, but it costs a lot too. So, but in families, we don't do that sometimes. Sometimes we're like, I really want to create a connected family, but I'm not willing to get rid of the stuff that causes the problems. I'm not talking about getting rid of other people's stuff. Don't misunderstand. I personally think it is wrong to chuck other people's stuff in the trash. I think that's wrong. But I have ownership over my own stuff. And so what does that look like? It looks like, okay, so I don't drink, but I do use wine for cooking. And I have some in my pantry. I had a friend who has has an addiction to alcohol. They lived with us for a little while. And one time I found out that they had actually had one of my wines to drink late at night. So I bought the wine. It's mine. I get to keep it in my pantry. it didn't really belong to them anyway, but what did I do with it? Down the drain. Not because of anything other than I know that what they were after in that moment was to be free from addiction. And so comparatively, I don't care about the cost of the wine. The wine can go down the drain. I care about them. I'm willing to give up the wine to have the result of it's possible for them to be free from addiction. It looks like my kids have video games that they bought with their own money. I'm not getting rid of their video games, but I'm not going to have my own video games. I'm not going to get into a habit myself of being addicted to video games. And I'm also going to continually work on other areas where I see that I'm given over to addictive tendencies. Like, how can I rid that of my own life? It looks like when they were little, I didn't want my kids being disrespectful to their father. And so for a while, we didn't read Berenstain Bear books because I felt like that it was contributing to this environment that the mom and the kids think it's okay to act like the dad is stupid and doesn't have any sense, which is a whole nother tangent we could go on about how the culture in general has just created a whole thing about that. But so no Berenstain Bear books for a while. I didn't want them doing dumb stuff like careening down the front yard in a wagon. So we put away Calvin and Hobbes for a while. I didn't want them picking up bad language and using it everywhere. In particular, one kid had a problem with that for a while. And so for a time, there were certain movies that I didn't let them watch that other kids were allowed to watch. It wasn't because I was being a stick in the mud parent. It's because it's more valuable for me to be teaching them the manners that I want them to have. And right now I have ownership over this and I don't have to let it in my house. So it was stuff like, I love the movie Shrek. I think it's hilarious. I think it's a funny movie and it's got some really great points, but I didn't let my son watch it when he was 4 because all he wanted to do was talk about the poop and butt jokes. Like, it wasn't good for him. So we put it away until he was more mature and able to handle that without, like, he learned a little bit of discernment about who he could and couldn't say that to. I didn't want to be cynical, so I quit watching House. I didn't want to be argumentative, so I quit listening to a particular radio show program. I didn't want to create an argumentative spirit in my house. And so there's all these different things that we've done because I don't want the competition sitting on the shelf tempting the people around me to choose it when the choice is, when the stakes are high, when they know it's going to cost them and they're struggling a little bit, like, oh, they're really going to do that? Okay, wait, there's that cheap version. I'm not leaving it on the shelf. So the point is that up here, if you're a Christ follower, the truth is it's not going to be the evil that takes you down. It's going to be the good enough, the okay, that it's not too bad, that it's fine. That's going to be the thing that takes you down. The good is the greatest enemy of the best. That's the truth. So if you nail this 4th step, then they're invested 100%. They are. They're like, me and you, we see eye to eye. The relationship is strong. And what you get is that loyalty piece, the loyalty over here. The loyalty. This becomes available when they are 100% invested in the relationship. And now you don't have to sell them anymore. They're sold. Now they are advocates for the same thing, and they will preach your message for you, right? So a couple of things about this ladder as I'm wrapping up here. Number 1, it takes as long as it takes. That's the tough part. If you are on the first step and you're creating stuff like creating awareness and stuff like that, and the people in your life are not budging, they're not moving down that customer journey, You can't force them. You can't force them. That's the truth about it. I mean, there's time, like when our kids are little, you can like, no, you are going to church today, right? We can do that. But the older they get, the less that we have power over them to insist that they do it a certain way. My dad used to always tell me when I was a teenager and we weren't getting along, Mary, the only fences that are out there are the ones you create yourself. And he's right. In the end, the boundaries that we have are the ones that we choose to put there. It's all imaginary. So, but we choose them, right? And so we hold others as free to choose as well. So they get to choose for themselves. And this is part of modeling God's unconditional love for us, which we're going to go into on a deeper level tomorrow, about what does it look like to serve them in this value in these, couple of steps. Like we're going to do a little bit deeper work on that. But God loved us so much. He wanted genuinely to be in relationship with people who wanted to be in relationship with him. He didn't want robots. He didn't want people that he had forced into a relationship. He wanted people who had chosen to be in relationship with us. And so as a result, we're free to choose. We're free to choose. And generally we like that. We like the fact that we get to make our own choices, and other people do too. So we hold others as free to choose as well. Sometimes people make the wrong choice, or difficult choices, or choices that impact us, which gets into boundaries. And I have a whole other set training thing about that we're not doing today. But the point in this session is that choice is valuable. They have a choice and we get to let them. And however long it takes is how long it takes. So the final thing is we walked through it through Deuteronomy, but is there a biblical model of this value ladder in other places in the scripture? So your assignment tonight is just that. I'm going to give you a chance to look at a value ladder in the Bible. And let me turn over. So hopefully on your worksheet, your assignment says, read Genesis 32 and 33. What gifts of value did Jacob use to communicate peace to his brother Esau? Okay, so there's a little bit of a cool value ladder in that. It's pretty easy to see. If you want a bonus one, like if you're really geeking out on this and you want to take it to another level, think about how Jesus interacted with his disciples. This is not on your assignment, by the way. This is just I just think it's really cool. But think about how he interacted with his disciples and see if you can identify the different ways that he identified with his disciples on the ladder, like in his relationship with his disciples and his ministry with them and around them and to other people. Think about the different things that he did, how he called them, how he interacted with them, and how they rode this to the top and even over here. And who didn't ride that customer journey with Jesus all the way to the top? What ladder step do you think he opted out on? Right? There's one guy that didn't. We all know who that is. But where do you think he got off? Where do you think which step do you think he got to before he was like, okay, I'm getting off this. I'm getting off this journey. It's just kind of a cool thought. So anyway, if that's just a bonus, you don't have to do that one if you don't want to. I just thought it was interesting. Okay, and then the other assignment is just consider conversations you've had with one other person. Think about this one other person you're in relationship with, and consider which step of the ladder do you think the majority of your conversations and interactions land on? Do you think you're still back down here in modeling? Do you think they're curious? Do you think they're invested? Do you think they're completely sold? What do you think? That's the question to ask, okay? So that is our day 3. Thanks so much for hanging in with me. Thanks so much for joining today. And if you're watching the recording, I'm just so proud of you that you're here. Anybody that's still on day 3, y'all are doing the work. You are absolutely doing the work to make this happen, and that's unique. And so I just honor you for taking the time to invest in your family that way. So proud of you, so thankful for you. I'm praying for you. I want you to know that I'm praying for you and the relationships that you're wanting to work on. I'm so excited for the changes that are possible. Okay. So tomorrow we'll be back on at our regular 7 o'clock time. And we are talking about 3 ways not to show up. You're going to have some fun with that. These are so fun. And 6 questions to answer before you're asked. So as a way to work on some of this value, like how do we actually make that happen? All right. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for showing up and participating. Love you all so much. And I'll catch you tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. Bye.